The Martian sun hung low, bleeding orange light across the endless dunes of dust. Commander Malik Johnson trudged forward, the hiss of his respirator blending with the whisper of the wind. His water reserves blinked red on his wristband, 2% remaining. Every breath burned. Every step felt heavier than the last. He'd been stranded for 3 days since the rover's filtration core failed, and the silence of the desert had begun to hum in his skull. He was about to stop and rest when he noticed something. Movement. A flicker of silver beneath a ridge. At first, he thought it was a mirage. Then he saw it again. A shape, half buried, shimmering faintly under the dying light. He climbed toward it, boots sinking into soft dust until he saw her. Not human. Skin iridescent like oil in sunlight, limbs too long for earthborn symmetry, chest rising shallowly. The being's breathing rattled weakly, lips cracked, eyes closed. Malik crouched beside her, scanning quickly. She was dying. He knew it instantly. Dehydration, oxygen starvation, maybe radiation burn. Her body trembled like a fading flame. He could turn away. No one would blame him. She wasn't human, and water was life itself here. But when he saw her chest heave, when a faint sound escaped her throat, a broken hum like someone trying to sing through sand, he felt something shift inside. "Hey," he whispered through his helmet, voice cracking. "You alive?" The alien stirred, lips parting slightly, but no words came. Her skin pulsed faintly as though light lived beneath it. Malik stared at the small flask strapped to his belt. His last water. He'd been saving it for when things got desperate, when the thirst would break him. That moment had arrived, but not for him. He unscrewed the lid slowly, hesitation thick as dust in the air. One sip could keep me alive another hour, he thought, but one act might mean something more. He lifted the flask toward her mouth. Her eyes fluttered open, large, luminous, filled with confusion and fear. Malik spoke softly. "Drink. You need this more than I do." She hesitated, then drank, trembling hands touching his gloved fingers as she did. The hum in her throat deepened, a sound that wasn't quite a word but felt like gratitude. When she finished, Malik capped the flask and sat back, chest tightening from thirst. He stared at the horizon. The storm bands were thickening in the distance. Martian weather always turned cruel by dusk. He should be moving, but his body refused. Something in this moment, this fragile exchange of survival, rooted him to the spot. He looked at the alien again. Her breathing steadied. Color returned to her face, or whatever the Cylon called a face. He exhaled slowly and whispered, almost to himself, "Guess we're in this together now." A faint hum echoed in reply, soft, melodic. She touched her chest and said something like, "Kalira." He pointed to himself. "Malik." Their names hung in the dry air, 2 syllables from different worlds, united by necessity. He sat back against a rock, exhaustion wrapping around him like gravity. As twilight deepened, he could almost hear Earth in the silence, the hum of Lagos traffic, the scent of fried plantain, the sound of his grandmother's voice singing Yoruba hymns. He hummed one of them now, low and slow, a rhythm that anchored him to home. The alien listened, eyes reflecting the stars just beginning to appear. For a long moment, there was no fear. Just the hum of 2 lives refusing to surrender. Malik looked at her again and said quietly, "If compassion makes us weak, then I don't want to be strong." The alien tilted her head, understanding nothing of the words but everything of the feeling. If you believe humanity's greatest strength is compassion, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Far off, the Martian wind shifted, carrying with it the promise of a coming storm, and the beginning of something no human had ever imagined. Morning came pale and red, stretching thin rays of light across the dunes like fingers of fire. Malik woke to the low hum beside him, the alien woman stirring weakly under a thermal sheet he'd wrapped around her during the night. Her breathing was steadier now, though faint lines of crystalline dust shimmered along her arms like glass veins. For a moment, he watched her in silence, struck by the fragile beauty of a being who shouldn't have survived the cold. When her eyes opened, they caught the sunlight glowing in shades of deep violet. She flinched when she saw him. Malik raised both hands, palms up, speaking softly. "Easy. You're safe. I'm not here to hurt you." Her voice came out cracked and uncertain, melodic yet strained. Man. The word sounded foreign on her tongue, stretched and tentative. "Yeah," Malik said, offering a small smile. "Human. Malik." He touched his chest. "Malik." She blinked slowly, then mirrored the gesture. "Ka-Lira." "Ka-Lira," he repeated, nodding. "Good to meet you, Ka-Lira." Her gaze lingered on him, puzzled but curious. Malik noticed her trying to sit, wincing with each movement. He helped her gently, offering a ration bar, though she only stared at it in confusion. "Food," he said. "You eat it." She tilted her head, repeating softly, "Eat." The word rolled from her like a note in a song. She tasted a small piece, grimaced, then tried another bite. Malik chuckled quietly. "Yeah, it's not great, but it'll keep you alive." The faintest ripple passed across her face, something that might have been amusement. As the sun rose higher, he checked his scanner. Their oxygen levels were low and they'd need to move soon. His rover was a few kilometers east, still half buried from the storm. He turned to Ka-Lira. "We have to walk. You think you can move?" She didn't understand all his words, but when he gestured toward the horizon, she nodded, standing slowly. Her movements were deliberate, graceful despite the weakness. Malik caught himself watching the way the light caught her skin, colors shifting from blue to green to gold, as if she were woven from the Martian dawn. They walked in silence for a while, dust swirling around their feet. Malik tried to keep his pace slow, glancing back often. When she stumbled, he offered his arm. She hesitated before taking it, her touch cool, almost electric. After some distance, she spoke again, voice uncertain but clearer. "Why share water?" Malik looked at her. "Because you were dying." Her eyes narrowed. "Not same kind." "You risk life." "Maybe," he said, shrugging. "But I was raised to help when I can. Where I come from, we don't leave people, any people, to die alone." She seemed to think about that, her expression softening. "My kind would not." He glanced at her, curious. "Would not help?" She shook her head slowly. "Silent law, exile, no mercy, weakness forbidden." Malik frowned. "Exile? That why you're out here?" Ka-Lira's eyes lowered. The hum in her throat deepened, vibrating faintly through the air. "I refused command, saved innocence. My punishment, silence." Her words hung heavy between them. Malik stopped walking. "You were punished for saving people." She nodded once. He exhaled, heat building in his chest. "That's not weakness, Ka-Lira. That's strength. You did the right thing." Her gaze lifted, and for the first time, he saw something close to emotion flicker across her face, something raw, fragile, and painfully human. They reached the ridge overlooking the faint glint of his rover below. Malik gestured toward it. "Almost there, you'll be safe soon." Ka-Lira followed his gaze, then looked back at him. "Safe, with you?" He hesitated, feeling the weight of her question. "Yeah," he said finally, voice steady. "With me." The wind rose again, scattering red dust into the thin air. As they began their descent, Malik couldn't shake the strange feeling blooming in his chest, a mix of duty, curiosity, and something deeper he couldn't name. He had no idea that the choice he made yesterday would change the future of two worlds. Inside the rover, the recycled air tasted faintly metallic, a reminder that everything on Mars came at a cost. Malik sat in the pilot's seat, fingers moving over the cracked console as he tried to coax power from the damaged systems. The low hum of the engine flickered, died, then returned weakly. Beside him, Ka-Lira sat rigid, studying every motion like it was a sacred ritual. Her eyes glowed dimly under the cabin's blue emergency light, reflecting both caution and awe. Malik tapped his comms band. Static. He adjusted frequencies until a faint voice crackled through, base control distant and broken. Relief hit him hard, but the signal was too unstable to send full details. "This is Commander Johnson," he said. "Rover Alpha 7 reporting partial systems failure. Returning to New Dakar." The voice responded, distorted. "Copy, Alpha 7. Report, anomaly detected near your coordinates. Respond." Malik hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Kalira. She sat silently, hands folded, as if she knew what he was deciding. If he reported her, she'd be captured. Dissected, maybe. Mars was not a forgiving place for the unknown. He swallowed hard and switched off the mic. "Transmission lost," he muttered, leaning back. Kalira tilted her head. "You speak lies?" He met her gaze. "Sometimes lies keep people safe." She was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "Your kind value truth?" "Yeah," Malik said, his voice tired. "But sometimes survival comes first." The hum of the engine deepened as he steered toward the distant ridges. Kalira's reflection shimmered faintly in the window, her bioluminescence pulsing in rhythm with the machine's vibrations. He realized it wasn't random. It moved with emotion, like her body was a living heartbeat of color. "You risk much," she said softly. "Why?" Malik tightened his grip on the controls. "Because I couldn't watch you die out there. Doesn't matter what species you are, suffering looks the same." Her voice lowered. "My people do not think this way." He glanced at her. "Then maybe that's why you're different." Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the mechanical wheeze of the oxygen pumps. Malik's throat was dry. His water gauge blinked dangerously low. He ignored it. As hours passed, he fought exhaustion. Kalira watched him, expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "You fear death." He gave a tired laugh. "Everyone fears death. But I'm more afraid of dying without doing something that matters." She nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "You already have." The words struck him harder than expected. For the first time since the storm, Malik felt something close to peace. Then a red light flashed across the console. "Oxygen drop," he muttered. The system was bleeding air faster than expected. He checked the pressure seals. 2 were compromised. He cursed under his breath. "We'll have to ration it." Kalira touched the side of her neck, where faint ridges opened and closed. "I can share," she said. He frowned. "Share what?" She inhaled deeply, then exhaled near his helmet intake. The air smelled faintly of ozone and iron. His sensors flickered. Oxygen levels rose slightly. He looked at her in disbelief. "You can produce air?" "Filter," she corrected gently. "My kind breathe light." He shook his head, half laughing. "You just saved me again." Her voice carried a small tremor. "We save each other." Outside, dust devils whirled over the dunes, streaking the horizon in rust and gold. Malik stared at them, lost in thought. He knew Base Command would expect full reports, and when they learned what he'd hidden, consequences would follow. Still, a quiet conviction grew inside him, a sense that this meeting wasn't chance. He turned to Kalira. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. Agreed?" She placed her palm against his chest plate, a gesture that radiated warmth through the cold suit. "Agreed," she said softly. In the silence that followed, Malik felt something beyond survival, a fragile bridge between two hearts learning the same rhythm in the endless dust. The rover glided across the red plains, its shadow stretching long under the twin suns. Malik's thoughts drifted far from the endless dust, carried backward through time to the sound of drums and laughter in New Dakar. He could almost smell roasted millet, the tang of solar spice oil from market stalls, hear the pulse of djembe rhythms echoing through the domes of the settlement. That city was more than a home. It was a promise carved from red soil and black memory, built by the descendants of dreamers who refused to vanish. He remembered arriving there at 16, wide-eyed and stubborn, when Mars still felt too silent. The settlement had been a patchwork of repurposed modules and patched domes, but the people were proud. They painted the walls in bright murals, stories of Earth's coasts, ancestral voyages, and the rebirth of black civilization beneath alien skies. To Malik, those walls spoke louder than any anthem. They said, "We are still here." Kalira sat beside him now, watching as he adjusted the rover's course. Her gaze flicked toward him, sensing the change in his expression. "You remember," she said softly, her accent folding around the word. "Yeah," he replied. "Home." She tilted her head. "Tell me." He smiled faintly. "New Dakar. A city built by people who believed Mars could be more than just survival. My grandmother came from Lagos after the migration, said the stars belonged to everyone, not just the ones with money or power." Lagos, Kalira repeated carefully. It was a place on Earth, hot, crowded, alive, music everywhere. Her eyes glimmered faintly. "Music," he chuckled. "It's like emotion you can hear. You don't need to understand the words, just feel it." Kalira seemed to listen inwardly, then whispered, "My kind have no music." Malik looked at her with quiet disbelief. "None?" She shook her head. "We speak through harmony fields, thoughts joined in pattern. No sound, no chaos." He laughed softly. "Chaos is what makes it beautiful." Her lips curved slightly as though testing the shape of a smile. "You miss it." "Every day," he said. "When I was a kid, my mentor, Dr. Amale Ndlovu, taught us that water was sacred. She said, 'Every drop is a memory of Earth. Treat it like a song you can't sing twice.'" Kalira listened intently, her bioluminescence dimming to a warm gold. "Her song you can't sing twice," she echoed. "That is truth." The rover jolted over a ridge, snapping Malik from his thoughts. He steadied the controls, eyes narrowing as dust plumes danced on the horizon. He felt the tension return, the ever-present weight of survival. But beneath it, the rhythm of New Dakar still played inside him, a rhythm of persistence, community, and faith. Kalira broke the silence again. "Your world was destroyed?" He hesitated. "Not destroyed, just distant. Earth's still there, but it's sick. Too many wars, too many people. We came here to build something new." "And you built rhythm instead of walls," she murmured. He grinned. "Exactly." For a moment, quiet understanding passed between them. Two exiles of different worlds, bound by the same hunger to belong. The light outside shifted, bleeding into deeper orange as the suns dipped lower. Malik slowed the rover, letting it drift over the dunes. The hum of the engine mingled with the faint hum from Kalira's chest, forming a strange harmony that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. He found himself saying, "You know, my grandmother used to hum when she worked the soil back home. Said the earth listened to sound. It grew better when you spoke to it kindly. Maybe Mars will listen too." Kalira's voice softened. "Then speak. Let it hear you." Malik smiled, humming a slow Yoruba melody. The tune filled the small cabin, low and ancient, a song of endurance older than Mars itself. Kalira's eyes fluttered closed, the colors of her skin pulsing with each note, responding instinctively to the rhythm. For the first time since they met, Malik didn't feel alone in the silence. He felt connection, thin, delicate, but real. As the last note faded, he whispered, "Home isn't a place, Kalira. It's what survives inside you when everything else burns away." She opened her eyes, glowing faintly. "Then you carry home wherever you go." He looked ahead to the distant lights of New Dakar, flickering faintly through the red haze, and said, almost to himself, "I just hope it's still waiting for me." The storm announced itself with a low growl rolling across the plains. Malik heard it before he saw it, the sound of Mars turning against them. He looked toward the horizon where a dark wall of dust swelled upward, devouring the light of both suns. The hum of the rover faltered. Warning lights flashed across the console like angry eyes. He muttered under his breath, "Not now, please, not now." Kalira sensed the shift immediately. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed a sharp silver, and the hum from her chest deepened, resonating with the vibrations in the air. "The wind is angry," she said softly, her voice trembling. "It's not wind," Malik answered. "It's death moving fast." He pulled the rover into lower gear, steering toward a line of jagged ridges that might offer shelter. The machine rattled, metal grinding under stress. The first gust slammed into them hard, shaking the cabin. Dust poured across the windshield like liquid flame. Kalira clutched the frame of her seat. "Will we die?" "Not if I can help it," Malik said through gritted teeth. Visibility dropped to nothing. The storm howled like a living thing, sand scraping against the hull with a shriek that pierced through his helmet speakers. Malik could barely see the instruments, his pulse racing faster than the flickering lights. He guided by instinct, memory, and sheer will. When the next gust hit, the rover spun sideways, one wheel lifting from the ground before slamming back down. Malik fought for control. "Hold on!" A deafening crack followed. The rear axle snapped. The rover lurched violently, throwing Malik forward. He hit the controls, pain flaring in his shoulder. The engine coughed once, then died completely. The silence that followed was worse than the storm's scream. Kalira looked at him, fear shimmering across her features. Malik forced a breath, scanning their surroundings through the dust. There was a fissure nearby, a dark slit in the rock barely visible through the storm's veil. "There!" he shouted. "We can take cover in that gap." She hesitated, glancing at the furious world outside. "The air, too thin." "I'll carry extra tanks," he said, already pulling the gear from storage. "Move when I say go." The moment they stepped into the open, the storm swallowed them. Sand tore at their suits, each grain like a needle of fire. Malik led the way, pushing against the gale. Kalira followed close, her hum breaking through the noise, steady, guiding. "Keep singing," he yelled. "I can follow your voice." Her melody rose higher, strange and beautiful, vibrating through the storm like a beacon. Malik stumbled, but never stopped. The fissure loomed ahead, narrow but deep. They reached it just as another gust hit, forcing them to fall inside. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, but the sound of the storm muffled outside, replaced by the heavy thud of his heartbeat. Kalira knelt beside him, helping him adjust his oxygen seal. Her light flickered low, her energy drained. Malik pressed a water pouch into her hands. "Drink." She shook her head weakly. "You need it." "I said drink," he insisted. She obeyed, sipping slowly. The faint blue glow returned to her eyes. "You risk yourself again," she murmured. "That's what we do," he said softly. "That's what humans do." The storm raged outside, the fissure trembling with each distant blast. Malik leaned back against the cold rock, exhaustion pulling at him. Kalira sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his. Her hum shifted again, gentle this time, filled with sorrow and gratitude. "What are you singing?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then said, "A song of memory, for those who fall in storms." Malik closed his eyes. "Then sing for us both." The sound filled the fissure, otherworldly yet warm, vibrating through his chest like a heartbeat shared. As he drifted near sleep, Malik realized something strange. Her song matched the rhythm of his grandmother's hymn, the one he'd hummed days before. Different tongues, same soul. When he opened his eyes again, the storm still roared, but its fury felt distant, almost reverent, as if even Mars itself had paused to listen. When the storm finally passed, Mars lay still, its silence vast, heavy and sacred. Malik stepped out from the fissure, every muscle aching, his visor coated in red dust. The sky above was a dull copper haze, and the horizon stretched endlessly, quiet as a held breath. The rover was gone, buried beneath a dune that hadn't existed yesterday. Survival now depended on what he could build from scraps. Kalira followed him, her steps slow but sure. Her bioluminescence glowed faintly beneath the thin light, her expression calm in contrast to his weariness. "The world is changed," she said softly. "Storms do that," Malik answered. "They wipe everything clean. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it just hurts." He set up a temporary beacon from the rover's wreckage, an antenna and a portable transmitter powered by a solar pack. The machine crackled to life, sending a faint ping into the open sky. He adjusted frequencies, trying to reach New Dakar's satellite network. Static filled the air, broken only by occasional bursts of fragmented code. Kalira watched quietly, then asked, "You call your people?" "Yeah," Malik replied, not looking at her. "Protocol says I have to signal distress after a crash." "But if they come—" she began. "They'll find you," he finished for her. "Yeah, I know." He froze for a moment, the weight of the truth pressing down. Duty pulled one way, conscience pulled another. He'd spent years serving the Martian Authority, enforcing regulations meant to protect humanity's fragile foothold, but none of those laws had ever considered compassion for the unknown. Kalira stepped closer. "You could say nothing." Malik looked at the transmitter, then at her. "If I say nothing, they'll assume I'm dead. If I send a signal, they'll come looking." She lowered her gaze. "You must choose between worlds," he exhaled slowly. "Feels like I've been doing that my whole life." For a long while they said nothing. The transmitter hummed softly, blinking in rhythm with the rising sun. Malik's throat was dry, his canteen empty. He turned to check the readings. Oxygen at 60%, pressure stable. The beacon's signal was weak but traceable. Kalira crouched beside him. "In my world," she said quietly, "truth is law. Even lies of kindness are punished." "Sounds exhausting," he replied with a half-smile. She tilted her head. "And in yours?" "In mine, truth is complicated." He paused, staring into the endless horizon. "Sometimes we lie because we're scared. Sometimes we tell the truth because we're proud. Either way, someone gets hurt." Her eyes glimmered faintly, reflecting the soft shimmer of the beacon light. "You hurt now." He didn't deny it. "I just know that once they hear this signal, there's no going back." Kalira studied him for a moment, then reached out, pressing her palm gently against his shoulder. The gesture felt grounding, her touch cool through his suit. "If they come for me, I will go," she said. "You must not fall because of me." Malik shook his head. "You think I'd survive knowing I left you out here to die? No chance." Her voice carried a tremor of emotion. "Your mercy has no limit." "It's not mercy," he said softly. "It's respect." A sharp tone interrupted them. The beacon had found a connection. The console blinked green, displaying coordinates and signal confirmation. Malik hesitated, finger hovering over the transmit key. Kalira watched, waiting for his choice. He pressed the button. A coded message pulsed toward orbit. But as the machine sent data, Malik entered a false report, altering the coordinates by several kilometers. It would look like interference, just enough to buy time. When the signal ended, he turned to Kalira. "They'll think I'm alive but far from here. That gives us a few hours." She looked at him in quiet disbelief. "You risk your place for me." He met her gaze. "Places can be rebuilt. Lives can't." Above them, the sky shimmered faintly where the satellite relays passed overhead. Malik stood still, feeling the silence return, heavier now that it carried secrets. Somewhere deep inside, a choice had already been made. By the time Malik and Kalira reached the outskirts of New Dakar, the sun was setting behind the colony domes, casting long shadows across the red desert. The settlement rose like a living mural against the copper sky, its glass shells painted with ancestral patterns, its solar panels glittering like scales of a cosmic serpent. Malik felt his chest tighten. After days of silence and sand, the sight of his home filled him with both relief and dread. Kalira walked beside him, her cloak of woven dust dulling her glow. She moved with quiet grace, but her eyes searched everything. The airlocks, the pipes running along the ground, the flicker of artificial light inside the domes. "Your people live in circles," she murmured. He glanced at her. "Yeah. The domes keep us breathing. We learned early on Mars isolation kills. Circles keep life in." Her gaze softened. "A beautiful prison." He smiled faintly. "You're not wrong." Malik guided her through a narrow service tunnel leading into the old agricultural quarter, abandoned after a water breach years ago. The walls were lined with faded murals of rivers and forests that never existed here. He paused, brushing his hand over one, a painted woman holding a calabash filled with stars. "This used to be the greenhouse sector," he said quietly. "Now it's just memories and dust." Kalira touched the mural too, her fingers glowing faintly. "Your people remember beauty even when it dies." "That's how we survive," Malik replied. "We keep remembering." At the end of the corridor, a heavy hatch opened into a chamber filled with the remnants of hydroponic systems, broken pipes, empty tanks, and a faint smell of rust. Malik turned on a small lamp. "We can hide here for a while," he said. "No one comes down anymore." Kalira lowered herself to the ground, exhaustion in every motion. Malik handed her a ration pack, and she examined it with curiosity before eating. The silence between them felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. He looked around the chamber. "When I was a kid, I used to come here with Zuri and Kwame, two friends who still work with me. We'd steal seeds, try to grow plants without permission. We failed every time." Kalira tilted her head. "You tried to make life where life refused." "That's the human story in one sentence," he said with a tired grin. She studied him. "You hide me from your kind." "Why?" Malik hesitated. "Because they'd see you as a threat, or a prize, not as a person." Her voice softened. "And you?" "I see someone who reminded me what being human means." Her eyes met his. "You risk everything for this." "Yeah," he said quietly. "But if compassion dies here, what's left worth saving?" A faint knock echoed through the tunnel. Malik stiffened, motioning for silence. A moment later, a familiar voice whispered, "Malik, you better not be dead in there." He exhaled sharply, relief cutting through his tension. "Zuri." He opened the hatch, and a tall woman with dark braids and a bright yellow respirator stepped inside. "You look like hell," she said, scanning him up and down. Then her gaze fell on Kalira, and her expression froze. "What the— Malik, tell me that's not what I think it is." "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "She's not dangerous." Zuri crossed her arms. "You brought an alien into the colony. You've officially lost your damn mind." "Maybe," he said, "but she saved my life. I'm returning the favor." Zuri stared for a long moment, torn between disbelief and loyalty. Finally, she sighed. "Kwame's gonna kill me for this. Fine, I'll help you. But if Command finds out, we're all finished." Kalira bowed her head slightly. "Your courage honors him." Zuri blinked. "She talks?" Malik smiled faintly. "Yeah, and she listens better than most people." Zuri rolled her eyes. "You always find trouble, Malik." He looked around the dim greenhouse. "This time trouble might be the start of something worth the risk." Zuri shook her head but smiled. "Then let's make sure nobody finds your miracle." The following days blurred into a rhythm of whispers and shadows. Malik worked in silence, rebuilding broken water conduits in the forgotten greenhouse, while Zuri monitored security feeds. Kalira remained hidden beneath the collapsed scaffolding, her faint luminescence barely visible through layers of dust and fabric. Despite the tension, a strange peace settled among them, a fragile understanding born of necessity. When Malik finally stepped outside one evening, the sky burned gold. Mars's twin suns were descending in slow unison, their light bleeding into one another like molten glass. The air shimmered faintly with cold, thin wind. Kalira followed him, quiet and cautious, her gaze drawn upward. "Your stars are small," she said softly, "but they burn with courage." Malik smiled. "That's a poetic way to say this place is ugly." She tilted her head, the corner of her mouth twitching. "It is not ugly. It is truth, without disguise." He leaned against a rusted pipe, watching her study the sky. "You talk like someone who's never been allowed to speak freely." Her eyes glimmered. "In my world, words are measured. We speak only what serves order." "Emotion is waste." He looked at her for a long time, the red dust curling between them. "You ever get tired of being told not to feel?" Her voice was low. "I did. That is why I was exiled. Malik nodded slowly. Then maybe you came to the right planet. Kalira turned toward him. Your people, are they free? He hesitated. Free enough to argue about what freedom means. We built New Dakar to escape the past, but we still carry it with us. Even on Mars, some people think compassion is weakness. And you? She asked. He smiled faintly. I think compassion is strength pretending to be soft. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind hummed through the pipes like distant music. Kalira closed her eyes, breathing the thin air, her bioluminescence brightening into soft waves of turquoise. Malik found himself staring, her light reflected off his visor, dancing like water across his face. She opened her eyes suddenly. Why do you look at me so? He blinked, caught off guard. Because you glow. Hard not to notice. Her voice softened, almost teasing. You glow too. Inside? He laughed quietly. That's just exhaustion. Kalira studied him. No. When you speak of your people, your light grows. You are warm. He looked down, uneasy with the tenderness in her tone. Where I come from, warmth is all we have when everything else runs out. She stepped closer, her presence quiet but magnetic. Then your warmth saved me. Malik exhaled, his throat dry. Maybe it saved us both. The suns dipped lower, their final rays catching the colony domes in gold. Malik pulled a small metal flask from his pocket, the last of his water reserve, salvaged from the rover. He held it out to her. Here, one last sip each. Kalira shook her head. You should keep it. He pressed it gently into her hand. No arguments. You drink first. She hesitated, then took a slow sip. The act felt sacred, like a ceremony older than either of their species. She handed it back, and he drank the rest, feeling the cool liquid burn down his throat. They stood there, silent, watching the light fade. Above them, Mars's thin clouds reflected the dying suns, glowing blood orange and violet. Kalira spoke again, voice distant. Where I was born, we say that when two stars touch, they become one soul. Malik looked at her. And what happens when they drift apart? She turned her gaze back to the horizon. They never truly do. Their light remembers. Something in her words lingered inside him, heavy and bright. He wanted to answer, but no words came. Instead, he nodded, the gesture enough. As night spread across the dunes, Malik thought of the days ahead, the signal he had sent, the dangers waiting. Yet beneath two suns that no longer burned, he found something rare, stillness that felt alive. The peace they'd built in the forgotten greenhouse didn't last. Malik felt it the moment he walked through the outer corridor that morning. The faint hum of distant drones patrolling above, the subtle vibration underfoot that came when the colony's scanners swept the lower levels. Someone at command had found the false signal irregularity. They were looking. Zuri met him at the hatch, her expression tense. Malik, we've got a problem. The patrol grid extended this sector. They're tracing heat signatures. His stomach tightened. How long before they reach us? An hour, maybe less. Kwame says they're sending a crawler to sweep the tunnels. Malik exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. Damn it. From the shadows, Kalira watched them both, her bioluminescent skin dimmed almost to grey. You are hunted, she said. No, Malik answered quietly. We are. Zuri crossed her arms. I told you this would happen. Command doesn't miss a thing. They probably already have your transmission logs flagged. He looked at her, the fatigue in his eyes edged with resolve. Then we move her before they get here. Move her where? Zuri shot back. There's nowhere left to hide. There's always somewhere, he said. Kalira stepped closer, her voice calm but certain. You should let me go. If I leave, your people will forget. Malik shook his head. They won't forget. They'll hunt. They always hunt what they don't understand. Her expression softened. You carry too much guilt for a world not yours to fix. He turned away. Maybe, but I still have to try. Zuri placed a hand on his shoulder. Malik, I need to know. Why her? Why risk everything? He hesitated, words heavy on his tongue. Because she's proof we can be better than our fears. That's worth something. Before Zuri could answer, a low rumble echoed through the floor. The sound was unmistakable, crawler engines closing fast. The greenhouse lights flickered. Malik's pulse spiked. "They're here," Zuri said. Kalira's glow brightened instinctively, casting ripples of color along the metal walls. Malik turned to her urgently. "Dim the light. They'll pick it up on sensors." She focused, forcing her body to dull, her breathing slowing until the glow faded completely. For a moment everything went dark, except for the red emergency lights blinking overhead. Zuri whispered, "We can lock the hatch, but they'll scan for air density. They'll know someone's inside." Malik's mind raced. "What about the old maintenance shaft under the tanks? It leads to the southern corridor." Zuri frowned. "That route's half collapsed. You won't make it far." "We'll make it enough." He pried open the floor panel, revealing a narrow shaft lined with rusted rungs. Kalira peered down into the darkness. "It is narrow," she said. "Yeah, well, welcome to human architecture," Malik replied with a dry grin. "Go first. I'll follow." Zuri crouched beside them, shaking her head. "You're insane, Malik, but I'll stall them as long as I can." He met her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she said. "If command catches me, I'll say you forced me at gunpoint." He chuckled softly. "I wouldn't expect less." Kalira hesitated before climbing down. "Your friend is brave." "Yeah," Malik said. "Bravery's kind of contagious around here." They descended into the shaft, the sound of the crawler growing louder above. The metal rungs groaned beneath their weight. Malik's heart hammered as dust fell from the ceiling. Kalira's hand brushed his once, steadying him when his foot slipped. "Careful," she whispered. "I'm trying," he breathed. When they reached the bottom, Malik looked up one last time through the darkness. The rumble of the crawler stopped directly overhead. He could hear the muffled voices of soldiers and the hiss of pressurized doors opening. Kalira touched his arm gently. "You risk everything again." He smiled faintly. "And I'd do it again tomorrow." Above them, metal boots clanged against the floor. The hunters had arrived. The tunnels stretched endlessly beneath New Dakar, a labyrinth of forgotten maintenance shafts carved from rock and steel. Malik's flashlight flickered against corroded walls, revealing faded warning signs in half-erased languages. Every breath tasted of rust and dust. Behind him, Kalira moved silently, her faint glow illuminating the path like a heartbeat in the dark. They had been crawling for hours, and exhaustion was setting in. Malik's arms trembled with every climb, his oxygen gauge ticking lower. "We should have hit the southern vent by now," he muttered, his voice hoarse. Kalira's tone was steady. "Perhaps we are moving in circles." He gave a humorless laugh. "Wouldn't be the first time humanity built a maze it couldn't escape." Silence pressed between them. The echoes of their movements blended with the distant hum of the colony above, a reminder of the world that had already begun to forget him. Malik's rank, his duties, his future, all of it buried as deep as the tunnels they walked. Finally, they reached a cavern where the ceiling had collapsed, revealing a narrow crack of sky. The faint shimmer of daylight filtered through, weak but real. Malik sank to the ground, leaning against the cold stone. His lungs burned. Kalira crouched beside him, watching his breathing. "You are weakened." He managed a smile. "Humans don't last long underground. We need sun, or something close to it." She tilted her head. "In exile, even the sun feels distant." Her words hung heavy. Malik studied her, realizing they were more than observation. They were confession. "You said you were exiled for saving others. Do you regret it?" Kalira's eyes glimmered faintly. "Regret is not a word my people use. We are taught that duty defines existence. But when I saw them, children trembling before soldiers, I could not obey. I sang against the command field. I broke harmony." He listened, the faint hum of her voice vibrating in the air. "So they cast you out." "Yes," she whispered. "To them, silence is death. But to me, Silence became truth. Malik looked toward the crack of sky, where thin air shimmered like water. "Guess we're both exiles now." She regarded him quietly. "You left your people to save me." "They will not forgive that." He shrugged weakly. "Maybe they shouldn't." Kalira leaned closer, her expression unreadable. "And yet you do not despair." "Despair?" He laughed softly. "My ancestors survived worse. Slavery, wars, exile across oceans and planets. We carry the memory of endurance in our blood. If I'm lost, then I'm in good company." Her gaze softened. "You speak as if pain is a song." "Maybe it is," Malik said, "a rhythm that keeps us moving when hope runs dry." She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. The contact was light, but electric, an exchange not just of warmth, but recognition. Two outcasts who had found in each other what neither world could give, understanding. But peace never lasted long on Mars. The sound came first, a distant tremor rolling through the tunnel floor. Malik froze, listening. The vibration grew louder, mechanical, and deliberate. "Crawlers," he said under his breath. Kalira's glow brightened in alarm. "They have found us." "Not yet," Malik said, pulling himself up. "But they will soon." He glanced around, scanning the walls. A side passage gaped ahead, its darkness deeper than the rest. "This way," he said, motioning for her to follow. As they moved, Malik felt the tremors closing in, metallic echoes of pursuit. Each step became a battle between exhaustion and survival. He wanted to stop to rest, but the sound of engines pushed him forward. Kalira's voice was a whisper beside him. "Why continue?" "You cannot win against your own kind." "Because running means I still have a choice," he answered. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to crawl again. Malik's vision blurred from fatigue, but Kalira's glow guided him forward. When they finally emerged into open air, night had fallen over the Martian plains. Above them, the stars shimmered cold and indifferent. Malik collapsed to his knees, gasping. Kalira stood beside him, looking toward the horizon where the colony lights flickered faintly in the distance. "You are far from home now," she said. He looked up at her, the weight of the truth pressing into his chest. "So are you." And for the first time, both realized that neither had a home to return to, only each other, and the endless dust that had made them equals. They traveled for 2 nights across the wastelands before the alien ships appeared, sleek, silver shapes gliding low over the dunes like whispers of light. Malik had seen Cylon craft only in grainy surveillance footage. Seeing them now filled him with awe and dread in equal measure. Kalira stopped walking, her posture rigid. "My people," she said quietly. "They have found us." Malik's throat tightened. "You said they would kill you if you returned." "They might," she replied, "or they will simply listen before deciding." Before he could speak, beams of pale blue light enveloped them both. The world shifted. The Martian wind vanished, replaced by still, sterile air that hummed faintly. Malik blinked, disoriented, as the chamber around them resolved into focus. Metallic walls that seemed alive, pulsating with energy. Figures emerged, tall and luminous. The Cylon Council. Their bodies shimmered with the same radiance as Kalira's, but colder, more precise. Malik felt their gazes cut through him like scanning beams. None spoke at first, yet he sensed the hum of their thoughts like a song played just beyond human hearing. Kalira stepped forward, her voice steady. "Elder harmonics," she said in her language, her tone respectful yet firm. "I have returned by chance, not choice. This human aided me when the desert would have taken my life." The tallest figure approached, eyes glowing white. "Kalira of the lower harmony," it said, its voice resonant, vibrating through the air rather than carried by it. "You broke sacred law. You interfered with conflict. You disrupted the song of order. Why should we listen now?" Kalira straightened, her glow dimming. "Because silence without compassion is not harmony, it is death," the council murmured among themselves, light rippling across their forms like waves. Malik stood still, feeling the alien rhythm pulse through his bones. When one of them turned to him, He instinctively raised his chin. The elder's voice echoed in his mind as much as his ears. Human Malik Johnson. Why risk your life for one caste from our kind? He swallowed hard. Because she was dying. Where I come from, we don't walk away from someone who needs help. Even an enemy? Another voice asked. There are no enemies in thirst, Malik said. Only beings who need water. A strange silence followed. The council's lights shifted subtly, their colors blending into deep blues and silvers. Malik sensed judgment, not hostility but measurement. They were weighing his soul, his purpose. The elder turned again to Kalira. You allowed him to live, though he saw what should remain unseen. Yes, she answered, because he saw not with fear, but with faith. Faith, one repeated, the word foreign on its tongue. Malik stepped forward. Yeah, faith that compassion isn't weakness. Faith that life matters even when it costs something. Another counselor's glow flared brighter. You speak boldly for one uninvited. Malik's jaw tightened. Maybe I wasn't invited, but I didn't come here to beg. I came because leaving her behind wasn't an option. The elder's light pulsed sharply, then softened. You defy your kind's laws as she defied ours. Two discordant notes that somehow find harmony. Kalira's eyes shimmered with emotion. He carries the rhythm of life within him. I ask not for forgiveness, but for understanding. The chamber filled with a deep hum, resonant and powerful. Malik's skin tingled as the sound wrapped around him, vibrating through his chest. He didn't understand the words, but he felt the emotion within them, debate, doubt, reverence. Finally, the elder spoke again. We will not kill you, Kalira, nor will we kill the human, but judgment remains. Malik frowned. Judgment? The elder turned toward him. To measure truth, one must endure it. You will face the trial of heat, survive, and you speak for your kind. Fail and silence claims you both. Kalira gasped softly. Elder, he is not silent, he cannot endure. But Malik's voice cut through her protest. I'll take the trial. She turned to him, anguish in her eyes. Malik, you don't understand. He met her gaze. I understand enough, I'm not walking away. The elder's glow deepened, approval flickering through the chamber like lightning. Then the sands will decide. The trial of heat began with silence. Malik stood at the center of a vast chamber, its walls alive with shifting, iridescent patterns. The floor beneath him was smooth and glassy, a stark contrast to the harsh landscape of Mars. Above, the ceiling pulsed faintly, as though the entire space were breathing in rhythm with the siren. Around him, the council hovered like spectral beings, their eyes reflecting the cold judgment of ages. Kalira stood to his left, her figure dimmed but still a presence, her body pulsing with soft, subdued light. She watched him closely, her gaze filled with both concern and something deeper, something he couldn't quite place. Malik swallowed hard, his throat dry from both the tension and the atmosphere in the chamber. He hadn't expected this to be easy. He hadn't expected it to be anything other than a trial by fire, but the weight of his decision pressed heavily on his chest. The elder's words echoed in his mind. The sands will decide. A low hum vibrated through the chamber, and without warning, the floor beneath Malik shifted. He staggered as the ground began to rise, forming a steep incline leading to a high platform. The temperature shot up instantly, the air growing thick and heavy as if the very space around him was closing in. Malik felt his skin heat, sweat beginning to bead along his brow. His breathing quickened as the warmth intensified, his suit's cooling system struggling to keep up. Kalira's voice echoed softly in his ear. This is the trial of heat. Endure it, and you will prove your heart. Malik clenched his jaw, fighting the rising panic. The heat pressed against him like an unseen hand, and the air felt almost too thick to breathe. His muscles screamed, but he forced himself to focus, to take slow, deliberate steps up the incline. Every movement was a battle, his body rebelling against the intensity of the environment. He could feel the sweat pooling beneath his suit, his chest tightening with each breath. The Silen watched in silence, their eyes unblinking. The chamber's heat became almost unbearable, the air itself warping with intensity. He could barely make out Kalira's form in the distance, her bioluminescence glowing faintly against the growing heat. She remained still, watching him, her face unreadable. The pressure built, both physical and mental. Malik's legs threatened to give way, but he forced himself forward. His mind raced, his thoughts spiraling, but somewhere in the back of his consciousness, a voice steadied him. "Keep moving. Don't stop." He reached the top of the incline, barely able to breathe, his face drenched in sweat. The temperature hit its peak, and Malik felt the burning air sear at his exposed skin. But he didn't fall. He didn't collapse. He stood there, panting, as the silent elder spoke again, its voice filling the chamber. "You have withstood the trial, human. Your body endures. But the trial is not only of flesh, it is of spirit. You have shown strength, but will your heart carry you through?" Malik's pulse thundered in his ears, but he lifted his chin, meeting the elder's unblinking gaze. "I don't know if my heart is enough," he said, his voice rough but steady, "but I won't let it fail." The heat began to recede, the air slowly cooling, though the pressure still hung in the atmosphere like a heavy fog. Malik stumbled slightly, but he stayed upright, each breath labored and slow. Kalira's voice broke through the stillness. "You have proven yourself, Malik. The song of your spirit has played through the trial." The silent elder's glow pulsed brightly, and a collective hum filled the air. "You are no longer an outsider, human. Your presence among us is now acknowledged." Malik felt his chest loosen slightly, the weight of the trial lifting just enough to let him breathe. He turned to Kalira, his legs shaky, his body still burning with the remnants of the heat. She smiled softly, her glow flickering with warmth. "You did it," she said. He nodded, still struggling to catch his breath, but a small smile tugged at his lips. "We did it." The chamber grew quiet once more, the silent watching their decision made. Malik had passed the trial of heat, not just with his body but with his spirit intact. And now there was no going back. The council's chamber hummed with the sound of their deliberations. Malik stood at its center, still recovering from the trial, his chest heaving with the aftershocks of the intense heat. Kalira stood by his side, her glow softening now that the tension in the air had begun to settle. The silent elders, their forms flickering like distant stars, circled around them, their silent contemplation pressing down like a weight. The elder who had spoken to Malik earlier now approached, its form rippling with energy. The voice that followed was calm, but there was a sharpness in its tone, as if cutting through centuries of tradition. "You have passed the trial of heat, human," the elder intoned. "Your flesh endures, your spirit remains unbroken. For this you are worthy." The words echoed around the chamber, bouncing off the walls like they had weight, like they carried significance far beyond the moment. Malik felt his pulse quicken. "Worthy? What does that mean?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the heat. The elder's glowing eyes fixed on him. "It means you have earned a place among us, no longer an outsider, but a witness. You will speak for your kind. But there is more." The chamber darkened briefly, as if the very atmosphere took a breath. "To honor your sacrifice, to acknowledge your strength, we offer you a gift." Kalira shifted slightly, her presence beside him steadying him. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried a weight. "A gift? From them?" The elder's voice rang clear. "We offer you the bond of a mate, a silent to join with you to serve as an ambassador between our people and yours." Malik's stomach twisted. The air in the chamber felt thick again, pressing against his chest. He glanced at Kalira, her face unreadable, her gaze steady. She stood still, like the calm in the middle of a storm, but Malik could feel her tension, her uncertainty hanging in the air. The elder continued. "A mate, a companion, one who will speak for you among the Sealan. One who will be bound to you, to aid you as you aid us." Malik blinked, the gravity of the words sinking in. "A mate," he repeated, trying to grasp the enormity of what was being offered. He glanced at Kalira again, seeing her eyes now flickering with a complex mix of emotions he couldn't fully interpret. "You offer me someone else, someone of your kind, to bond with me?" "Why?" Malik's voice wavered, a mix of confusion and uncertainty. "The bond between our kinds is not just of flesh. It is one of responsibility, the elder explained, its voice full of ancient wisdom. You have proven your strength and understanding. This is not a gift lightly given, it is a choice, one that will bind your future to ours. Malik's mind raced. A mate? An ambassador? He barely knew how to navigate his own existence here on Mars, let alone step into the complexities of an interspecies bond. The Cylon offered him the impossible, not just a chance to live, but to lead in a way he could never have imagined. Kalira stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. If you accept, you will not just be bound to me. You will be bound to all of us, to the weight of our choices, our laws, our future. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with something unreadable, before she spoke again. You will be more than an ally. You will be a bridge between two worlds. Malik looked at her then, his heart thumping. He hadn't expected this, hadn't anticipated the weight of the offer or the depth of the responsibility it carried. But in that moment, the way her eyes locked with his, steady and unwavering, he felt the pull of something beyond fear or duty. He felt the pull of something real. I don't know what to say, Malik said finally, his voice quiet. Kalira reached out to him, her fingers brushing against his. You don't have to say anything. The choice is yours, Malik. But know this. If you accept, there is no turning back. You will be a part of this world, a part of me, forever. The elder spoke again, its voice deep and resonant. The bond can be forged, but it must be chosen. Choose wisely, human. This gift is both a privilege and a responsibility. Malik stood there, the weight of their words settling on him like a storm cloud, heavy and thick. He glanced around the chamber at the eyes of the Cylon, at the future that now lay before him, uncertain, challenging but undeniably his. Finally he turned back to Kalira, his decision settling in his chest. I choose this. Choose you. Kalira's glow brightened, her expression softening for the first time in what felt like forever. She stepped closer, her touch warm and sure. Then let us begin. The Cylon elder's voice echoed one last time. The bond is made. The air on Mars had never felt so thick, so suffocating. Malik stood at the edge of New Dakar, the familiar hum of the colony, now a distant memory. The dome stretched above him, a fragile barrier between this world and the unforgiving desert that lay beyond. The decision had been made, the bond had been forged, and now he had no choice but to face the reality of what that meant. He had chosen Kalira, chosen to stand with her, to carry the weight of their worlds on his shoulders. And now he could only wonder if it was enough. Beside him, Kalira stood in silence, her bioluminescence a soft glow against the red dust. She had been so quiet since the bond was sealed, her thoughts heavy, her gaze distant, but Malik could sense the shifting in her, the way her presence seemed to pulse with uncertainty, as if she too was navigating a world she didn't fully understand. What now? Malik asked, his voice quiet but filled with the weight of the question. Kalira didn't look at him immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the horizon, where the twin suns of Mars were beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of red and gold. Finally she spoke, her voice a soft murmur. Now we live. Together. Her words were simple, but they carried a depth that shook him. They weren't just living for themselves anymore. They were living for something greater, something that neither world had prepared them for. Malik turned to face her fully, studying her face, the flicker of light in her eyes. What does that even mean, Kalira? We've got the Cylon behind us, but what about Earth? What about New Dakar? Kalira glanced at him then, her expression unreadable. What about them? They are distant. You chose me. You chose the future. I didn't choose this for the future, Kalira, Malik said, his voice rising slightly. I chose this because I couldn't watch you die in that desert. I couldn't walk away when you needed help. She stepped closer, her soft glow illuminating the dust between them. And that is why we are together now. Because you did not choose fear. You chose to see me not as a threat but as a being worthy of compassion. Malik took a deep breath, the air in his lungs heavier than it had ever been. His gaze dropped to the ground, and for a moment he simply stood there, lost in the realization of what he had done. "I never thought it would come to this," he muttered. This bond. It feels bigger than anything I've ever done." Kalira's hand brushed against his, her touch gentle but certain. "You did not do this alone, Malik. I am with you, as you are with me." His heart beat faster at her words, and something in him began to shift. The weight of their choice still pressed on him, but it was no longer a burden. It was a promise. And that promise was something he would have to honor, not just for the Cylon or New Dakar or even Earth, but for Kalira and for the future they would build together. As the suns dipped below the horizon, the sky darkened into a deep purple, and the first stars began to blink into existence. Malik felt the weight of the night settle around them, but it wasn't the same weight that had pressed on him before. This time it was something else, a shared understanding, a shared future. He looked up at the stars, his thoughts drifting to Earth, to the home he had left behind. There was so much he didn't know, so much still uncertain. But for the first time, he felt a quiet certainty. He wasn't alone. "Let's go home," Malik said, his voice steady. Kalira smiled, a soft, warm expression that lit her entire face. "Home," she repeated. "Yes, Malik. Let's go home." And as they turned together, walking side by side into the unknown, the future stretched before them, uncertain yet full of promise. They would face it together, with the bond they had forged between them, and nothing would ever be the same again. The dawn on Mars was unlike anything Malik had ever seen before. The twin suns rose slowly over the red plains, casting long shadows across the horizon. The first rays of light touched the surface of New Dakar, the colony's glass domes gleaming like beads of water in a dry desert. The sky, now a soft amber, seemed to hum with an unspoken promise. Malik stood at the edge of the colony, looking out over the vast, barren landscape. The weight of everything that had happened, everything that had led him here, settled heavy on his shoulders. The wind whispered through the dunes, and the red dust danced in the air like small fiery embers. He could feel the thrum of life beneath his feet, the quiet pulse of Mars, a rhythm he had only just begun to understand. Kalira stood beside him, her glow faint but steady in the growing light. She was silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon, as though searching for something just beyond the edge of the world. Malik didn't speak at first, unsure of what to say. But the silence between them was comfortable, familiar now, like the space where their thoughts could mingle without the need for words. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Kalira asked, her voice soft, almost hesitant. Malik turned to look at her, the question catching him off guard. "I do," he said after a moment, his voice quiet. "I miss the way it smelled, the rain, the earth after a storm. The sound of people talking, the music that never seemed to stop. But I think I miss what Earth used to be, what we had to leave behind to come here." Kalira's eyes flickered with understanding. "You miss the rhythm of it?" "Yeah," Malik said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "The rhythm. The way everything seemed connected, like the world was moving to a beat that we all followed." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I understand. My people. We speak through harmonies. Our voices connect us, like the strings of a song. When something is lost, we no longer hear the harmony." Malik looked down, his fingers brushing the edge of his suit, as if trying to touch something that wasn't there anymore. "I thought I was alone, you know. I thought coming to Mars would be an escape from all of it. The noise, the chaos, but now I can't escape it, not really. It's inside me, and maybe it always will be." Kalira turned to him fully, her eyes shining with a soft, knowing light. "You are not alone, Malik. You never were. You just couldn't hear the rhythm." The words hung in the air between them, soft but powerful. Malik felt something stir inside him, a quiet warmth that spread through his chest. For the first time since arriving on Mars, he felt like he could breathe, not because the air was easier to take in, but because something deep within him had settled. A realization, simple and profound, washed over him. "You've taught me something," Malik said, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought this was a new beginning, but I see now. It's just another beat in the song." "The rhythm didn't end when I left Earth. It's still here." Kalira smiled then, her glow brightening as if in response. "Yes, the rhythm is not bound by time or place. It travels with us. It finds us in the silence of the desert, in the depths of the night, in the spaces between our breaths." He exhaled slowly, the weight of her words settling over him like a blanket. "So, what now? What do we do with all of this?" Kalira looked out over the horizon again, her face serene. "Now we listen. We listen to the rhythm of this new world, and we find our place in it, together." Malik stood beside her, the silence between them comfortable now, not empty. In that moment, he understood something deep in his bones. His journey wasn't just about surviving on Mars, it was about finding connection. The rhythm he had been searching for wasn't something he could escape. It was something he had to embrace. And with Kalira by his side, he would find his way through it. Together they would create a new song, a song for the future built on the foundation of the past. He took a deep breath, the Martian wind carrying a familiar weight. It felt like the beginning of something real. "Together," he echoed softly, the word feeling like a promise. The sky above them glowed with the light of two suns, and the dust of Mars stirred in the wind, dancing to the beat of a world still finding its rhythm.